Good morning. It's Aaron Heiser, Maker's Leather Supply, and it is the day before Christmas. So, if you're watching this within the next 2 days, Merry Christmas. If you're watching it afterward, hope you had a Merry Christmas. So, yesterday I finally finished cutting and shipping all the project boxes, and there were a lot of them. And I must have just lost my mind when I thought, oh, let's do the duffel bag as a project box and not order clicker dies for it and hand cut all of them out. One, we sold a record number of project boxes. This one, previously the record was the sling bag, and this one beat it by 23. So quite a few, but I had clicker dies for the sling bag. Anyway, I didn't order clicker dies because there's such large panels on this bag that I thought, well, it's going to create a lot of waste if I'm just, cut, move, and I don't have the ability to lay it out on a side of leather and actually piece everything out and figure out, how to get the best yield out of each piece of leather. And yes, I may have wasted a little bit more leather, but I bet it wouldn't have taken me 12 solid days of cutting and skiving to get it all done. Oh my goodness. So, lesson learned. Clicker dies, that's where it's at. All right, so today we're gonna at least get a good portion of our bag going. Okay, so here's the bag. This one is, we gave everybody the option, they could have just brown. One of our brown, a lot of the leather ended up being the SB foot stuff, which is great leather. Or you could choose to do the hair-on splash of color. And if you chose the splash of color, the biggest issue with it was I wasn't going to let people choose colors, because then we would have sold 6,000 turquoise ones and 0 of any other color, and I don't have, I get them in mixed lots myself, so I can't guarantee that I'll have those colors. So anyway, I did any of them that I didn't think were nice enough to make a bag or didn't go with the browns that we were sending out, I didn't cut those. So yeah, in this video, which could end up being more than one video, I'm going to use piping in the bag. It's not necessary. You don't have to use piping, okay? So don't panic. It was not part of the project box. That's why I'm considering breaking it down and making its own part of the video. But if you want to make this bag out of like a floppier leather, it can help the bag hold its rigidity like the one you see before you here, where, granted, there's some padding inside this bag to help it hold its form, but also, if that wasn't in there, then the bag could just slump down if it was made out of something that was just ultra soft and flimsy, okay? When I was teaching classes on this bag, I did make a couple of them. Herman Oak donated their 1881 leather, which is amazing leather. I love it. But it's not my preferred leather for this bag because it is a very flexible, floppy leather. And again, I feel like I should have to add the piping or something in there to give the bag some rigidity. When I design a bag, I always keep into account what it would look like when it's full. And, when you see advertisements for bags and, man, they look glorious and they're perfect and everything, they're just full of paper. You got to imagine, what's that bag going to look like when it's got 20 pounds of clothing or something else in it or whatever. So I try to keep that in mind. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But whatever. That's a long enough intro. Let's get to this. I'm going to be building one today that is the, I am doing the hair-on tops. And I'm using a special leather that I had some scraps of back there. It's like the splash of color leather, but it's also embossed. This is something we're gonna start carrying soon. But we've had it in one of our odd lot sales and stuff, but we haven't started carrying it yet. So I've got it, and then I've just got a really nice dark brown with some pull up to it. Okay. To make this bag, I'm missing pieces already. I'll go on the back and cut those right quick. But anyway, let's talk about what all was in the project box, okay? So what was in the project box was there's 3 main body panels, 2 sides, 1 bottom. And those are all the exact same size, okay? I did a lot of math and a lot of figuring and wasted about 4 bags worth of leather to make it to where all three of those panels could be the same size for simplicity. There's no other real reason other than sure is nice to only have a couple of pieces to your pattern, okay? And then you got two of these. We've been calling them either mailboxes or dog houses, so if you hear me talk about them during the video and I refer to a mailbox or a dog house, I'm talking about the end caps of the bag, okay? So there's two of those. And then there's a pocket piece here, okay? One of the favorite things I've done with these bags is tool this, make it a tooled piece and sew it onto the bag, and really adds a lot to the bag to be able to customize it like that. Okay, now besides that, some people got straps that were already cut out for them, but most did not. So you're going to need, out of the strap leather that came with your bag, you're going to need two 24-inch handle pieces. Okay, now I round these on both ends, but these are my handles. And then you're going to need four 11-inch straps, and on one end they need to be round like this, and on the other end they need to be squared off or cut straight like this. Okay, and what those are is those are the ones that are going down the sides of the bag here that hold the pocket on, and then on the back side it just is it's the same thing but without a pocket. You could add a pocket there if you wanted, but I've always just put them on one side. Besides that, what you're going to need to make this, you'll need at least 24 inches of zipper. The one we sent out is our Everbright number 5 zipper from YKK. You'll need 8 rivets, brass, copper, whatever you want. I use only the heavy-duty peening rivets. I don't use the little double cap ones. I've never trusted them very much. They have their place, don't get me wrong, but I don't use them in most of the things I make. You'll need 4 D-rings, and that should be it. With the zipper, the 24-inch zipper, you'll need 2 bottom stops and 2 slides if you want to make opposing slides on your zipper. So that's everything you'll need. The leather for this project, anywhere 4 to 6 ounce, depending on the rigidity of the leather, how firm the hand it is, how firm of a hand it has, and all that. Again, you can make it out of almost anything, but the optimal stuff to make it to where it stands up on its own, it's lightweight and nice, is going to be between 4 to 6 ounces. A lot of our SB foot leathers are really perfect for this. The Julie Bacher chap leather collection is really nice for this bag, but again, I would probably add the piping because it's an extremely floppy leather. 1881 I already discussed. And then any of our Crazy Horses, Crazy Horse line make this bag just excellent. So I'm going to go get the last 2 pieces that I forgot to cut out, and it's just 2 little 2-inch squares. When I come back, we'll talk about what all gets skived on this bag, and then we're going to start building it. All right, so I got my 2 little squares cut. I had some cut, I just don't know where they went. Anyway, 2 little 2-inch squares. These are going to be on the ends of the zipper, okay? So let's talk about what we need to skive on this bag. If you're using the hair-on leather, it's, again, very floppy. It's easy to fold over and stuff like that. So none of that got skived. Plus, it's very difficult to skive hair-on with a skiving machine. Hair-on is actually easier to skive by hand, unfortunately. But also, again, it doesn't need skiving. So, good. Now, so on this SB foot leather, though, on the big panels, the 2 sides and the bottom, you're going to skive about a 5/8 of an inch wide skive all the way around. Okay. Again, if you're making it out of 3 of these panels and not any of the hair on, go ahead and skive those down. They'll make prettier seams if you do. Okay. And again, this is one of those things. Skiving is not 100% necessary on this bag, but it makes a prettier result. Okay. I understand not everybody has a skiving machine, and hand skiving can take a lot of time. But the more you practice it, the better you get at it, and then it's not as big of a deal. So, same thing with the mailboxes, okay? These end caps, you just skive all the way around. All right, around the outside, And then the pocket, same thing, all the way around. Okay? Now, these 2 little 2-inch squares that I cut, I skived two sides. There, put it in the light. You can see where the skiving is. Okay, because one side's going to be rolled over, and that'll be sewn to your zipper, and the other side will be in the seam of your bag. So if you don't skive all those other pieces, skive these. You'll need to. You'll want to. All right. Then the other thing, these 4 straps right here, the flat end on them needs to be skived. Okay, and I need to go over there and do that on these. I thought I already had. But anyway, just again, the bottom like 5/8 of an inch or so, they're going to go into another seam, and it just makes a much nicer seam if you thin those out a little bit, because these are pretty thick. These are about 9 ounces. So there you go. All right. So when I build this bag, I like to build my 2 side panels up as much as I can, then build my zipper, and then start putting all the panels together. It's the most manageable way to do it. If you go ahead and sew the sides to the bottom, then it's very difficult to sew your straps onto the sides and everything now that you have this massive piece of already sewn together bag. So we're going to set all of these pieces, except for the pocket, we'll be using it. We're going to set these pieces all off to the side. So the bottom and the 2 ends are going to, and the zipper ends are going to be set off to the side for a moment while we put our strap sides and all that on the bag. Okay. All right. Now, if you have a hair on one, you want to try to orientate it to where the hair is going down. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it to where if I pet the cow here, that the hair, this is smooth right here. It's like going from the head to the butt of your dog. So that's the way I want to orientate this, and the one underneath it I'm just going to put to the side for now. All right, so the first things first, I want a rolled edge on the top of my pocket. Get on camera there. I want a rolled edge on the top of my pocket, okay? So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to take a piece of double-sided tape. You can use glue if you want to, but I like this double-sided tape because it's very fast. You don't have to wait for it to set up. You don't have to worry about making a mess. Just put it on there, okay? Now I'm going to go ahead and pre-fold over that entire skived area, okay? I'm not splitting the skived area in half. I'm folding it all the way from where it goes thin to where it goes thick. Okay, and just kind of pre-folding it over so that it knows where it needs to go once I take the backing off this tape. And there we go. Okay, and then that's actually the very first thing I have to sew. All right, so without having to move the camera and everything, I'm going to go over to my machine and I'm just going to sew from one end of the top of this to the other just to sew that folded edge down. All right, when I come back, that'll be done and we'll start doing our placement to put it onto the bag. All right, so quick and easy. I just sewed that top line right there. 138 thread, about 7-8 stitches per inch, something like that. Once again, I forgot to skive these dadgum things. I'll be right back. All right, that's where I'm ready this time. I also went ahead and just took an edger, Berry King number 0 grooved edger, and just knocked the corners off of all my handle pieces and my strap pieces. Okay, so now those are nice and rounded and have a finished look to them, and they're not so square. Excuse me, been sick for weeks. All right, so now I need to place my pocket on my bag. Okay, and it's pretty easy to do. This is one of my side panels. This is the bottom part of that side panel. I need to center it. Okay, so I've got my centering ruler here, and there it is. It's right in the middle, right there. Oop, no, it's not, because my centering ruler wasn't centered. All right, now it's centered. But I need to tape it there so that it stays there. Okay, so I'm going to take my double-sided tape here, and I'm just going to run a piece along each of the 3 sides here. Now, if you're working with the hair on, it can get tricky when you're using the tape and stuff because, of course, hair and tape don't always go together. Some of the hair on this is an extremely short-haired side of leather here. Some of them were very, very short-haired. Some of them were a little bit longer. The longer the hair is, the more difficult it is to get things to stick exactly where you want and stuff like that. And best I can tell you is you're going to have to experiment just a little bit. But generally, if the hair's a little bit long in an area and I need it to stick to something, I might give it a haircut. Okay, so okay. Now, once again, I'm going to find my center. I'm going to stick it down. There we go, just like that. Now, on each of these 4 pieces right here, I need to measure, okay, they're 11 inches long now, and they're going to stay 11 inches, but I need to measure 8 inches from the flat end up. All right, and what that's doing is, and all I'm going to do is just make a little mark with my thumbnail on the edges of it here. Okay, that's all I'm doing. You can barely even see the marks. They're just reference points for me. And what that is when we're sewing this on, I need to know where to stop my stitch. It's very difficult to go up one side, stop your stitch at a certain place, go up the other side, and then stop it in the exact same place. But if you've already pre-marked those places, it's a lot easier to figure out. Okay? So, I'm going to put some tape on the back of all 4 of these, and the tape will only go up to about where that mark is. I don't want it to go past that mark. It's okay if it's a little shorter than that mark, but not past it. Okay. Now I could go over there and grab me a wider roll of this tape, but I could also just double it up and do it this way. Okay, and again, you can use glue on something like this, but I don't advise it as much as I do the double-sided tape because it will, there's a lot of room for error when you're slathering glue on this thing. Okay, so I got to measure my 8 inches again. There we go. And put my tape on the back. Okay, now, excuse me. All right, very easy. We're going to remove that tape. Now at the bottom, I can easily see, and what I want to do is I want the edge of that pocket there right under the middle of this strap. So what I'll do is I can see the bottom very easily, okay, but I can't really see the top. So I'm going to lean up here, make sure all that's straight, and it's going to be just like that. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side. There should be. Okay, now I need the other panel to be exactly like this, except like I said, I'm not going to put a pocket on it. Okay, so I can measure it and put my strap pieces on it that way, or I can just cover this one up a little bit, and that'll show me where the bottoms of my straps are, and then I'll just make sure that they're going straight up. Don't forget to measure them to the 8-inch mark, but go ahead and do the exact same thing minus the pocket, unless you're building one of these and you want to put a pocket on both sides, then you can do it the exact same way. When I come back in just a moment, I'll have that done, and we'll be over at the sewing machine, and we're going to start sewing these pieces together. All right, folks, so here we are at my trusted Cobra Class 18 sewing machine. This is a light to medium duty, actually just a medium duty. But anyway, it does the light stuff. We're going to be using size 138 thread and a size 22 needle for this particular project. Those are usually my preferred. That's my preferred thread size. Just about everything in my shop is made with 138 thread. I hear people all the time, oh, I want to use a big chunky thread. Okay, I mean, you can. There's nothing wrong with that. But I like the more refined look of a little bit smaller thread. It's not tiny thread by any means. It still has a real nice accent to it, and really shows off the stitching. But anyway. All right, so here we go. What I'm going to do is I'm putting this sucker in here, and I don't want to sew across up here. Okay, I don't want to sew across up here because then that kind of perforates the strap, and you don't want to do that. You don't want to. That'll create a weak spot in that strap, and now the bag's only going to last like 50 years instead of 100 years. You don't want that. That's terrible. What a terrible way to do business. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start up here, and I'm going to sew all the way down. This is going to be inside of another seam later. So I'll just stitch across it real quick as opposed to back stitching and cutting my thread and all that. Just stitch across the very, very bottom down there, and then I'm going to go back up the other side, okay? Now when I sew a strap like this, I'm very careful and cognizant. I do it the direction I do it, because I want, so this is the center foot right here. Let me get something sharper than my finger to point with. There's a little screwdriver. Okay, so this right here, and I'm going to turn this light on just for a minute, so maybe that'll help too. Maybe it won't. See if I can zoom some more. Not much. So this right here is the center foot, and then this right here is the presser foot over here on the edge, okay? I want my presser foot to always be on the wider part of my strap. I don't want it hanging off the very edge of the strap. If I was trying to sew over here, that presser foot would just barely be right in the very edge of the strap, and as I sew along, it will fall off. It's a guarantee. And when it does, then I'm going to have this nice straight line of stitches, and then you'll see that because it'll move over and continue stitching because it will fall off faster than I can stop. Excuse me. So I always keep that in mind when I'm sewing things like straps, what direction I want to go to make my life a little bit easier, okay? So we're going to start out, and I'm going to come down about 3/8 of an inch or so, and I'm going to hold down the reverse lever over here with my elbow, all right? Turn that light back off. It's actually, there we go. Harder for me, but easier for you. So I'm going to use this finger to hold my thread down, and I've got my edge foot riding almost at the very edge of that strap over there. Okay, and I'm going to do a couple of back stitches to get to that point where I'd measured my little 8-inch mark. Okay, and now I'm just going to go forward. And I'm going to sew it all the way down to the very, very bottom of this strap. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. All right, now again, I could back stitch right here and cut my thread and then start over again on the other side and all that, but this is going to be down inside of another seam. No one will ever see it after this video, so I'm just going to stitch over to the other side. If you're hand stitching, that's obviously not the fastest way to do things, but we're machine stitching this bag. But that also brings up a good point. Every single bag video I do, people, well, can this be made with hand stitching? Well, of course it can. You can hand stitch anything you can machine stitch. It just takes longer. I know a lot of the pattern makers out there, sorry, we'll go up this and then I'll talk about it as I do it. I know a lot of the pattern makers out there create patterns where all the holes are pre-punched before you put the pieces together. But that's just not how I learned, and that's not how I teach. I have a lot of people that ask me on my templates, why don't you mark all your stitching holes? Because to me, it's a lot easier to put those layers of leather together and punch one hole than it is to sit there and individually punch every single piece and then pray that they line up when it's all said and done and put together. but that's just me. There's nothing wrong with the other method, don't get me wrong. But I find that way too many people are using giant round hole punches to do their hand stitching with, when that's not really the optimal thing to do your stitching with. Okay, so I'm all the way back up the top. I'm even with that other side because I'm right at that little mark. I'm going to hit my reverse lever here, get myself a couple of back stitches, and we're done. Now, rather than make you watch me do it, I'm just going to tell you I'm going to do that 3 more times. I'm going to do it on the other side of this pocket, and then I'm going to bring my other piece over here, and I'm going to do the exact same thing again. Okay, so I'll just show you though real quick. Once again, I'm going to start over here on my right hand side of this strap. I'm going to go down it, across the bottom of it, and back up the other side and stop. But again, why waste 20 minutes of video showing you that same process 3 more times, when if you need to see it again, hit the reverse button. We'll be back. All right, folks, so I got those sewn together, and now it's time for the zipper. Okay, some people are scared of zippers. Some people have watched my videos and they're not that scared of zippers. So let's make you not scared of zippers. So I have at least 24 inches of zipper tape here. Okay, and I've got 2 slides. And I'm going to make it to where these slides are opposing, where you can zip the bag up to the middle or unzip it like that, whatever. As opposed to just a one-way zipper where it goes from one end to the other, and that's that. So the first thing I need to do is put my slides on my zipper. Okay, so I'm going to separate my 2 pieces here. I'm going to take my slide, get up here for the camera here. Take my slide and I'll put one end into the zipper and the other end into the zipper, wiggle them a little bit and pull. Now, I promise you I made that look a little bit easier than it is. I've done a few of them, okay? Also, this is the Everbright zipper, and it's really, really smooth, so it just makes that job a little bit easier. It's 2, maybe even 3 times more expensive than a standard YKK, but especially with these opposing zippers, it's just a really smooth zipper chain. Okay, now I'm gonna zip that thing up almost all the way to the end. Okay, just like that. And then I need to take my other one and put it on the exact same way. Now, if I look, this one on, back in the camera, this one on this side is a little bit longer than this one on this side, okay? Just because of how I put it together. So this one needs to go into the little pull first. Okay, just barely, 1 or 2 little notches. And then this one. And then once again, kind of wiggle them together. We'll see how we did. Now, if I got it right, then when this is just unzipped a little bit, there's going to be a bubble there. Okay, and there's going to be where you can see that it's, dang it, get back on the camera, Aaron. You can see there's a little bit of a bubble in between those 2, okay? Now, the bubble's going to happen no matter what I do. But if one side of the bubble is bigger than the other side of the bubble, then they're not on correctly, and I need to back one of them off, realign them a little bit, and then put them back together until the little bubble's gone. Okay? I got extremely lucky on my first time, and it's good to go. Now, we do have those fancy little zipper jigs that help you hold everything while you're putting them on and all that. However, this table is 4 inches thick, and it doesn't attach to this table, so I just did it in my hands to show you. Excuse me. All right, next thing I need to do is take my zipper end pieces that we made earlier, okay? And I need to put the double-sided tape on the back of one side of each, and then fold it over to create a rolled edge, like that, okay? So again, I'm going to do that with some double-sided tape so that it stays closed. And then once we've done that, we can measure our zipper and start knocking the teeth off and putting the ends on the zipper to make it custom made for this particular project. There we go. There's one and another. All right, now, how do we measure to get our zipper the right length for this project? Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna move all this crap out of the way. I'm using a pretty big table here so I can really spread out. These two sides of this bag are gonna be like this. All right, except these edges will be rolled under once I sew them to the zipper. That's for in a little bit. Now, I'm gonna lay them out to where I know that it creates a straight line going all the way down the side, so they're perfectly lined up, okay? Then I'm gonna put these underneath here on both sides. Once again, lining them up with the edge of the bag, okay? So there's one and the other. And when I do that, the rolled over edge is facing the middle. All right. So for my next trick, I'm going to need a Sharpie marker, and I don't have one in my hand, but I see one, so give me 2 seconds. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this zipper out here, and you can put it under all that. You can put it on top of all that, but we're going to have to mark the teeth where the zipper overlaps those little pieces. Okay, show you what I'm talking about. Basically, I'm mocking up the bag, and yeah. Do. All right, there we go. Get the camera a little bit more over here. There. So you can see that there's the zipper cap that we're going to make, the leather one on both ends. The zipper runs right underneath it there. Okay, so what I need to do is I need to take my magic marker and just mark out those last 2 teeth that I can see on each end of the zipper. Okay, I'm just going to mark them. It doesn't have to be a black marker or whatever, but I'm going to mark them because when I go to knocking teeth off, those are the ones I start with, and then I work my way out. So I can't do that while I'm holding the camera like this, so I'm going to have to put it back down where it was. Let's see if I can get a tiny bit more zoom out of it here. There we go. Okay. Now I do want to make sure that when I'm doing this, that I'm careful with my marker not to mark my leather anywhere, because of course a black magic marker is going to definitely mark some leather. All right, so there's one end. There's the other end. Now I can pull that zipper out of all that mess and just show you. See where I marked those teeth right there? That's what I'm talking about. Okay, so I can now throw my panels off to the side because I'm done with them for a moment. Now it's time to build this zipper. So, I'm going to get my anvil here. I've got my marked area right there. I've got my zipper tooth remover. Okay, we sell these. This is an amazing tool. It's got a number 3 on one end, number 5 on the other end. This is a number 5 zipper. So we're going to put the number 5 end down. And then we're going to remember that we needed them all. So let me grab them all. All right. So we're going to put the number 5 end down. We're going to set it right on those ones that we marked out. I know my hand's in the way. I apologize. Give it a little hit. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to knock 8 teeth off. So that was, or 8 teeth per side. It knocks off 2 teeth per side each time I line it up. So that was 2 of them. Now I need to do that a couple more times. 4 teeth per side. 6 teeth per side. Eight teeth per side. All right, so now we got what looks like this jumbled mess right here. If I give it a little wiggle, all those teeth just fall right out. Now there's no more teeth. I got one hanging there. I didn't get him good, so I'll knock him one more time, and then I can put my my stops on this thing. There's always one that wants to be stubborn. I don't know why. You do all of them the exact same way, you would think they would all come off the exact same way. There, got her. Okay, now, I could turn it around and go ahead and knock off the other ends, but let me just go ahead and put a stop in that, and that way it doesn't accidentally, the zipper doesn't accidentally separate. Now, if the zipper separates right here, then I need to, I have to put it back together. So, I'm going to take my stop, and I'm going to set it right up against those first teeth that are remaining, okay? Like this is all scrap down here. My working end of my zipper, my good end is over here. So I'm going to put that stop right up against the last tooth that's available there. I've got a rubber pad here, and I'm just going to take my hammer and hit it down into that rubber pad. Okay, now there's what the front side looks like now. The back side has these 4 little prongs. I'm just going to take some pliers and bend those prongs in towards each other. Okay. There we go. Now that I've got them mostly bent over, I'm going to take my hammer and just finalize that. Make it nice and flat. So now, there's the front side. There's the back side. That zipper's not going anywhere on that end, okay? Now we got to turn it around and do that whole process again, okay? So, again, I'm not going to record 5 more minutes of me making a zipper when you could just rewind it if you need to know again, but I will just go over real quick. I'm going to start with the teeth that I blackened out and work my way towards the end of the zipper, not towards the middle. That's my working area, okay? Towards the end. That's scrap now. I'll knock out 8 teeth per side, and then I'll put the stop on it. So when I come back, that'll be done, and we'll move on to the next part. All right. So now I got a stop on both ends, and I know everything's going to work. I did forget to say it seems like common sense, but a lot of people have made this mistake, to include myself. But make sure that the top of that bottom stop is facing up, just like the top of your slides, okay? If it's on upside down, then you've got the unpretty part is facing the user in the bag, and you don't want that. Now, next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take some double-sided tape. Here's my part that I already folded over, and I'm going to put it right across the back there. And then I'm going to put that right at the end of that, right at the end of that stop, like that, okay? I'm going to do that on both ends of the bag, and then I'm going to mock it back up here to make sure that everything measures out just right and that it's all just where it needs to be. So, okay, when I do this, I don't want my tape all the way over here at the fold. I want it, just kind of centered in that folded over area. That's fine. If it's all the way up here against the fold, then you might actually see it in the finished product, and you don't want that because nobody likes things that look like plastic and shiny and sticky. At least I hope they don't. Okay, so I'm going to take it, and I'm just going to put it right there at the end of that stop and press it on there. Okay, in just a moment, we'll sew it on there, but first we want to check it and make sure it's in the right spot. Okay, then I'll take the other one and do the same thing on the other end. Just like that. Okay, so we've got that. Now, let's put our bag panels back up here, and as long as this is the same length or width as these bag panels, then we have done something right. If it's not, then we'll review it and see what we need to do. But I think we're going to get lucky. All right, we got lucky. Give me just a second. I'm going to move the camera to it so that we can see what we've done here. Okay, give me just a second. I'm going to take it off the tripod. All right. Zoom out a little bit so I can get some control here. So down here on the end, the stop goes directly. Oops, sorry. The stop goes directly to the end, what I call the zipper cap there, the leather piece, and then that goes all the way to the end of the bag. And then, same thing over here. The stop is right at the zipper cap, and then the cap goes right to the end of the bag. Now, you can have about 1/8 of an inch, maybe even up to 1/4 of an inch in variation here, shorter, wider, whatever, because we have a nice little seam allowance on this project. But it's best to strive for getting it exactly where you want it. Now, I'm going to go over to the sewing machine, and I'm just going to sew across those zippers right there to where this is permanently stuck to the zipper right at that folded edge. And that's all I'm doing is sewing just directly across that on both ends. And then when I come back, we're going to start mocking the bag side up to put the zipper on it. All right. So I sewed those little caps on. Okay, just stitched right across it. No big deal. But what I need to do now is I've got the scrap end of my zipper, and I need to just lop it off. Okay, and I'm going to do that. I still want to leave some of it on the bag there, but I want to basically cut it off where the teeth were starting again. I'll do that on both ends. All right, so now, dang near threw that zipper in my coffee. That would have been terrible. Okay, now what we need to do is roll over this top edge so that where the zipper is going to sew up to it, it just looks nicer. All right, get my zoom back on here. So, again, this leather is not skived, okay? If you got the hair-on ones, they're not skived. So I'm going to kind of pre-roll this over about 1/2 an inch, okay? 3/8 to 1/2 an inch or so is the amount that I'm rolling over. And I want to be really careful because I need it to be even all the way across. I don't want it to be all wavy. So if you have to, make a mark or something like that, that's more than fine on the back side of the leather. But I do want to make sure that it's very nice and even all the way across, and it's not going to be wavy. So just pre-rolling it over, then I'm going to take some double-sided tape, and then I'm going to stick it down. Okay? If you've gotten if you're skiving one, your skive should be about 5/8 of an inch or so, and you're just going to fold that entire skived area over, and again, it ends up being right at about 1/2 an inch. Okay, now pull the backing off that tape. And again, this is the top of the bag, not the bottom of the bag, okay? So, I'm going to fold that back over how I had it. And now, when I do this, I like to fold a good bit of it over at a time. If I just take my finger and fold and fold and fold, then it'll look like the edge of a pie, and it'll have ripples going down it. But if I take 2 or 3 fingers wide and fold it all over in large areas, then I won't have that issue, or that issue will be so minuscule that it won't be noticed. Either way, I'm good with it. This is another area where I like the double-sided tape, because if I find out that maybe it's not as straight as I want it, then I can always just pull it right back up and do it again. If I'd done this with contact cement, then we might have a problem. At least good contact cement. Now, my other issue with the hair-on is now you see hair sticking up in that fold over, okay? And this is a very short-haired piece. If it were a longer-haired piece, it would be really bad. But it's okay to give it a little haircut. So I'll just take my scissors and go down it and just give that a little trim. And that takes care of that. And it cleans it up real nice. I do this now as opposed to after I have the zipper stuck to it, because then all that hair will get stuck in that zipper, and it'll be a lot more fun to sit there and pull out. Okay. So I'm just going right down the edge of it. Snippety snip. Making very, very, very careful not to cut my leather. I don't want to cut my leather now. Just the hair. After I cut all these hair-ons for this bag project box, I'll tell you what, it really looked like a barber shop back there in the back of my warehouse. On the pretty days, I actually rolled my cutting table outside and cut them out there. There we go. So I gave it a little haircut. There's still some areas I probably should work on here to get them a little bit better. But just do it until you're happy with it. Do it until that it's a nice even looking area, and it doesn't look like it's got just random hair sticking up everywhere. Okay? Excuse me. Okay. Now, once again, double-sided tape. So I'm going to take some double-sided tape, and I'm going to put across this part right here, and then I'm going to stick my zipper to that. Now I want to do it far enough down that I know that I'm not going to see the double-sided tape peeking out from underneath that rolled edge, because that's ugly. Okay. Now, generally, I'll do this one side at a time, because if I tried to stick the zipper to both sides and then go over there to the sewing machine, it's just a lot to stick together and be gentle with. If I just do it one side at a time, then I know that I don't have to worry near as much, okay? So, I'm going to take the backing off my tape. That's another difficult part. The backing off the tape on a hair-on is a little bit more tricky. But we can do it. We have patience, right? Patience. I didn't used to have patience. Leathercraft taught it to me. For sure. Okay. Be careful though. Don't let that stick to my table here. I'm going to lay my zipper out here as nice and straight as I can. Make sure my little zipper tabs are out of my way. Make sure my shoulder's out of your way. And I'm just going to start at one end of it and lay that rolled edge up to where I want about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch of distance between the teeth of the zipper and the edge of the leather. Okay, and once again, we want to put it in there as straight as possible, because it shouldn't look like a train track going through the mountains. It shouldn't be wavy and all back and forth and craziness like that. It should just be a nice straight process. There we go. Got it stuck. It's pretty even. I'm happy with it. I'm going to run to the sewing machine and sew this thing together while I'm getting so lucky. Okay. All right. So it's going to take me a second to set up the camera at the sewing machine for this part, because I probably have to put you on the other side just so there's room to see. So we'll be back in a moment. All right, here we are at the machine. I need my light, unfortunately, so you're just going to have to watch the ugly colored glow of it. That white LED is a little bit annoying. Okay, so real simple seam, guys. All we're going to do is start at one end, and I'll backstitch a couple of stitches, and then I'm just going to run it all the way to the other end. All right, so I'm going to reach over here with my elbow. I know I'm going to be in your way for a second. Hold the reverse lever down. Do me a back stitch or two. That's going to be inside of another seam here in a little bit, so I don't really care to get a proper, 3 back stitches or whatever. All right, and now I'm just sewing right along, okay? I'm sewing about 1/8 of an inch or so from the edge of the roll. I've got to be very, very careful watching my stitch line with the hair on because it can be deceiving where the actual rollover is, where there's hair versus where there's not, since this is one of those acid wash that, you know, it's got bald spots and it's got hairy spots and it's just weird. I've never enjoyed much hair-on work, but these are really neat hides, so I thought I'd play with them some. Okay. With the hair, it's kind of tricky, so I'm just using my finger to figure out where I'm at. Now, we're almost to the point where my zipper tabs are, my slides, okay? They're way up here. And that's important because, remember that bubble that we talked about a while ago? You don't want to sew that bubble into your bag, okay? So as I get a little bit closer to them, I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to stop my machine with my needle down in it, okay? And then I'm going to pull my slides past where I've already sewn. And by doing that, I'm going to avoid sewing that bubble into the bag. Now it'll be straight back here, and it'll be straight where I've already sewn, obviously. Okay. There we go. And I'll do the same thing when I sew the other side on. I'll stop just short of where those are, and I'll move them out of my way, and then I'll keep stitching. All right, I got all the way to the end. I did me a couple of back stitches, completed my last stitch. Now I'm ready to pull it out and kind of see how I did. I think I did fine, but again, it can be tricky with the hair-on stuff because it doesn't look as even as it is, or it looks less even. I don't know. Anyway, I think we did pretty good. If you look at the back side of making sure that, you know, your stitch is inside your zipper, you know, or on your zipper tape, a lot of folks will sew an entire line and then turn it over and find out that they might have missed their zipper entirely in some areas. This bag's pretty straightforward because it's all straight. That's normally when we're doing stuff with curves and everything is where it gets real tricky. So anyway, all right. So I'm going to go back over to the workbench. I'm going to stick the other half of the bag to this, just like this one was. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to sew it, just like I sewed this one. Except now I've got two giant panels to deal with. And what I do is I just roll them up and stitch right down the center. But once again, it's exact same procedure, so I'm not going to bore you with it and make you watch it. I'm just going to line up the other side with this side, stick it together, and sew it on in the exact same manner. All right, so this is starting to resemble something now. I've got two panels sewn together. I've got a pocket. I've got strap hangers. I mean, we almost have a bag here. So, I was about to say that the next thing we're going to do is attach the bottom panel to it and do all that sorcery, but I just realized I probably should go ahead and fold these over and put my D-rings in them. Because it's a lot easier to do that while this bag is flat than it is once the bag is sewn into a round shape. Okay, so we're going to get on that. But since I didn't realize that until I turned the camera on, that means I don't have the tools over here that I need to have with me. So give me just a minute and I'll have them magically appear here. We'll be right back. All right, I'm going to zoom in a little bit to get to where we're going. We're going to do this 4 times, but of course on the video I'm only going to do it once because once again, if you need to see me do it twice, just rewind it. Okay? So I've got this piece. I'm going to put a D-ring on it and then I'm going to fold it under like this. Okay. What you didn't see was I put a cutting board underneath here. And I'm going to take my, my hole punch here. And I'm going to make sure that I go through the part that folded under and then all the way through the bag as well. Now, that's a lot of layers, okay? And this thing is like all hole punches, it has a bevel to it. You know, it's more narrow up here than it is down here. So what I'm going to do is just make sure it goes through the first 2 layers, and then I'll unfold that second layer there to get to that 3rd one. Because I don't want to stretch that hole out so much that that the rivet doesn't fit nice and tight in it, okay? So, there we go. Again, I'm going to do this 4 times, but on the camera, I'm only going to do it once. I am using, we used up all of our brass D-rings and zippers for the kits that we sent out, so I'm actually using a nickel or silver colored zipper and D-rings and stuff. I am a huge fan for solid brass. Anyone that's ever watched my videos should know that. But you know, you got what you got. Or I guess I've got what I've got. Y'all have all my good stuff. All right. So, since I don't have any nickel rivets, I'm using a copper rivet. I think the copper will look nice with this gray, so that won't bother me too much. But normally I do like that all my hardware matches, you know, brass rivets, brass D-rings, brass zipper, brass everything. And that's honestly one of the reasons I like brass, is because you can find everything in brass. Okay, so I'm going to put that rivet all the way through there, and then I'll just flop this whole thing over. I'm going to get my metal anvil out. Okay, I do sometimes do this on my granite surface, but my granite surface is also pretty thick. A lot of folks, that's how they break their granite surface, is by setting rivets on it. So just be careful. Know your limits. You know, always go to a welding shop and get you a piece of plate steel or something to use. All right, so I knocked the washer down on that rivet there. It's as much zoom as I've got, unfortunately. Then I'm going to take my nippers and cut the end of that sucker off, just like that. And then I'm going to take my ball peen hammer, and I'm just going to flatten that bad boy out. And then once I feel like it's flat, I'm going to run my finger over it, make sure that it feels flat. I'm going to take a doming tool here, give it another whack, and that will help to make it to where it's not sharp and it doesn't like catch a finger. All right, and there she be. Now, the copper rivets, the cool thing about them actually though, is that you can dome them. So if I can find my appropriate size set of domers, if I set that over it, give it a hit. Well, that didn't do it. There we go. It gives it a nice pretty dome shape. All right. So again, I'm going to do that 4 or 3 more times. And when I come back, then we'll do the sewing the bottom of the bag on. All right, folks. So we got our all of our D-rings on. Okay. So now it is time to put the bottom piece on. Okay. And I kind of mentioned that it was some sorcery a while ago, and that was no exaggeration. We are going to have to work at this, but it's going to be great. So here I have placed it face to face. I'm going to do the pocket side first. It doesn't really matter, but I'm going to do the pocket side first. We're going to place it face to face, and I don't like to use tape or glue on a seam like this, because when I turn it back later, I don't want to see tape or glue. So I'm just going to clip these pieces together using some of my fine binder clips here. These are an absolute staple in our shop. I've got See this coffee can? I've got 3 of those full of these things. We're like clip rich around here. One of them falls on the floor. We don't even worry about it until we sweep. Then we get them all back. But anyway, see, there went one right there. I'm not even going to bend over and pick it up. That's right. Clips. All right. So I've clipped this together. I'm going to go over to the sewing machine. I'll take you with me. But we're going to sew right along there, right along that skived line, and then we're going to fold it back and we're going to sew it again. I call it a lap seam. I'm not really sure if that's the proper terminology, but to me, I sew it, then I lap it over and sew it again. So that's why I call it that. Anyway, when I come back, we'll be back at the sewing machine and we'll stitch that up. All right, so here we are. Again, I'm just going to sew down, and on my machine here, I'm going to put my edge foot, my presser foot, pretty much right at the edge of that skive there when I sew all the way down this. Okay, so what that means is I'm sewing about a 1/2 inch up. This is a 5/8 inch wide skive, and I'm sewing about 1/8 of an inch from the actual skive, where it goes from thin to thick over here. So that's my seam allowance. It's right at about a 1/2 inch. Okay, I'm going to start out with a couple of back stitches. I'm going to adjust my stitch length a little bit. This isn't as thick as where the handles were a while ago. Get that out of my way. All right. We're just going to stitch all the way down the bag, removing clips as we need. Okay, back stitch at the very end there, and now pull that out. Of course, I carried my nippers over to my workbench because I'm terrible about that. Take those last couple of clips off there. Do. All right. So right now, that seam looks like this. And there's nothing wrong with that, but we're going to make it prettier. Okay? So I'm going to kind of roll up this finished side here, the top pieces, so that I can have some working room. I'll just use one of these clips to hold that roll closed. I said one, I meant one at each end. All right, then it all falls in my lap. So I need to fold that seam back. Let me zoom out a little bit here so we can see what we're doing. I need to fold that seam back and crease it down a little bit here. Okay. And then I'm going to sew it again right along that rolled edge that creates. Okay, and it'll create a beautiful seam. And I'll tell you what, just due to how this is rolled up, I'm actually going to have to switch sides with the camera, otherwise you won't see anything. So let me do that, I'll be right back. All right, so here we are again. Let me get this microphone and move it up a little bit because this leather keeps hitting it, and I'm sure that sounds terrible. I do need to check my bobbin right quick. I hadn't in a minute, and I'd sure hate to run out of bobbin on this top stitch here. Good to go. Okay, now, Just going to run right down this. Again, sewing about 1/8 of an inch or so from the folded over area there. I'll start out with a back stitch or two, but again, that's going to be down in another seam later, so I'm not that worried about it. There we go. And I'm just going to run right down the edge of the bag here. Now I'm going to warn you that doing this on the other side is the hard part of this bag. It's difficult. I was using the Class 26 to do it because it made it a little bit easier, but I decided that I should just use one machine throughout the entire process because not everybody has, 4 or 5 different machines sitting there for every kind of stitch you can imagine. All right, there we go. Show you what that seam looks like. It's absolutely beautiful. It's gonna make a fine bag. Janie Sue hadn't seen the color that I chose for this bag yet, so she's gonna be excited, and then she's going to steal it. So there it is, right there. Okay, now, we're going to sew the bottom to the other side now, okay? I'm going to take these clips off that I've got just holding it rolled up. We're going to start out by doing this inside out. Okay, now spin it around where you can see what I'm doing here. Excuse me. Okay, so once again, I've just got it finished side to finished side. I've got the bottom of the bag and the other side of the bag. And I'm going to clip them together just like I did before, except now they're attached on the other end too. Okay. Got her all clipped together. So once again, I'm going to sew those together, and then I'll show you how we're going to do that other seam. It's going to be very difficult to show you on camera because the camera kind of had to be inside the bag, but we'll figure it out. We'll get it there. Okay? Yeah. So I'm going to start out with a back stitch here. See if I can zoom in. There we go. Start out with a back stitch. Again, we're sewing about 1/8 of an inch from where it goes from skived to unskived. So it's about a 1/2 an inch seam allowance there. Okay, and the beautiful thing about bag making is that's not an exacting standard on a bag like this. We can play with things just a little bit and get them to stretch or skew or move or whatever we need. Okay, now we have to do that lap seam again, but the problem this time is that now the bag is sewn into a circle, okay? It's a circle. So, how do we do that, Aaron? Crap, I don't know, let's figure it out. All right, so how it's going to be sewn, let me zoom way out so we can see the whole, what we're doing here. Okay. So basically now, once again, the bottom piece is going to fold down. Okay, that's where the seam is going to fold over. So the bottom piece is going to fold down. I'm just reaching inside the bag and creating a nice crease there so that it'll stay that way when I need it to. Okay, no big deal. There's nothing, no crazy secret going on inside this bag that you can't see. All right, now I have to unzip the bag. And when I go to sew that line now, I have to open it up, put my sewing machine down inside that, and then stitch that line. Okay, I need to spin it around so I can get it the way I want it. So, I check that bobbin one more time because this is a really fun one. It's good, I think, but I'm just going to go ahead and change it out because better safe than sorry. I'd sure hate to be 10 stitches from finishing this seam and have to change out the bobbin and do it again. Thread's cheap when you're looking at it that way. I know an entire cone of thread at almost 20 bucks is not so cheap, but when you're looking at it 10 inches at a time, it'll be all right. All right, so once again, I need to open up my bag and get it under my sewing machine to where the sewing machine's in the opening. Okay, and I'm just going to stay kind of zoomed out here because unfortunately, without having the camera just at my eye view, this is just as good as it'll get. Okay, and I've got to maneuver the bag so that all this is way back here so that I can sew all the way at the end. Okay, and this is where the more rigid and stiff leather that you make it out of, it can make this stitch difficult. Try to grab my top thread here. It's not proving to be too easy with everything else I'm trying to hold. All right, I'll start out with a couple of back stitches, and then it's just at the very ends here is where this is difficult. Once you get back to the, sorry, I can't see inside there. Once you get to the center area, it's not so bad. There we go. All right. So now I'm just going to stitch down the length of the bag once again. Okay, like I said, it's fairly simple here in the middle. It's, you know, because you're in the big wide opening of the bag and all that. It's just once I get down to the ends is where it gets wonky. Okay, getting closer to this other end, so got to reposition some stuff to make sure I can hold on to it. There we go. Did a couple of back stitches at the end. Now this, the bag body, I call it the barrel at this point, is done. Okay, now what I've decided to do with this whole piping versus non-piping thing, I am going to do piping. Okay, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop at this point, do all my piping part of my video, and it'll be a completely separate video. And then when I come back, it'll just be like there was a regular end cap there, except it'll have piping on it, which is totally optional. Okay? So I'm going to stop this at this point. I'll make the piping video, and then when we come back, we will finish this up, okay? So we're talking about 2 to 3 hours of my time, but you will blink and it'll be done. So go ahead and blink. All right, so I did the piping. Now, everything I'm going to do from here on out, no matter if you piped it or not, is the same, okay? The only difference is I've got my special piping feet on my sewing machine over there. I will use those to get this on here right. But all I did is I sewed my piping around the edges of my doghouse pieces, okay? Other than that, everything is exactly how we left it, all right? Now, we need to find our centers on our bag, okay? The top center is very obviously right there where the zipper comes together, but then the bottom center is not so obvious. So we need to fold it in half here, and then I'm just going to take a magic marker and mark where the middle is, because when I clip this bag together, I start at the middle and work my way around. And I need to do that to both sides of the bag. Okay, now, same with the dog houses. I need to find the centers. So, super duper easy. Fold them in half. Okay, just like that. Now, I'm going to do it to both of them, of course, because I need to sew both of them into the bag. Alrighty, now we're going to start clipping our bag together. Okay, and at first it's a little difficult because everything's just so floppy and there's no structure there. But I start by clipping the very top center together and the very bottom center together, and then I just kind of work my way around. Okay. So easy. My 11-year-old son has made 2 of these bags. And he's got a 3rd one already cut out and ready to go. I'm not sure what he's going to do with them all. I don't let him go anywhere. All right, so the top center is clipped together. Now I'm going to clip the bottom center together, and then I'm just going to work my way around the edges. And I start with the centers to make sure that it's not going to end up being askew from each other on each end. Okay, and then also, if I just started at one point, started working my way all the way around, then I might have a giant bubble left over at the end where one part of it's larger than the other part. If I break it down into halves, then that bubble will be easier to redistribute into the 2 halves than it would be to try to redistribute it into the entire bag. Okay? So, clippity clip clip all the way around. You can put as many or as few clips on there as you are comfortable with. Some people like to clip every single, like have the clips touching, and then some people put 3 on there and they're like, that'll hold it. And I'm somewhere in between. The good news is, once you get a few of them clipped on there, then it really does hold its rigidity and stand up a little bit better for you. Now, I do not bother clipping both sides of the bag at once because as you're sewing it, I've had it to where the clips on the other side just end up flipping off of it, and then I just got to go reclip it anyway. So why worry? Just take care of one end at a time, and then sew that end. All right, I always love it when everything matches up perfectly. I don't have like a big bubble left over where, you know, the outside was bigger than the end piece or vice versa or whatever. If you do have that, you just undo some clips and work that extra material back into the project, okay? It's not a huge deal. Now, if you've got a couple of inches, then there's some other problems there. Maybe your seam allowances weren't really measured very well, or maybe your pattern wasn't cut out right. But again, I did a lot of math and a lot of trial and error to where those 3 panels are the exact same size, and they all fit onto the end piece just fine. Okay, so I'm going to go back over to the sewing machine. We're going to stitch this side on, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing again, okay? Now, I'll say it, I'm sure I'll remind you again, but before you sew the second side on, make sure you unzip it just a little bit so you can get your hand in there when you're done, so that you can unzip it and turn it right side out. But otherwise, I'm not going to make you watch me sew 2 ends on when they're the exact same way. But we'll be right back. We'll stitch this one end on, and then, yeah, we're almost done here, guys. All right, so here we are back at the sewing machine. Again, the only thing that's changed, I have a different set of presser feet on here now. These are for piping. And what it is, there's a groove in between the center foot and the presser foot that allows that piping to run right down that groove, and then your needle is just right up against the piping when it sews. Again, no matter if you did piping or not on this project, what I'm about to do is exactly the same. I mean, it sews together the exact same no matter what. So, super duper easy. Okay, so I usually start kind of in the middle of the bottom and just start stitching. The only parts where it gets tricky is when you get into the corners. These tight radius corners down at the bottom, that's it. That's the only part that can give you any real trouble on this thing. The rest of it's just making sure you rotate the bag as you go. But there will be times I might have to put my head in the view of the camera so I can see around that corner. Or my arm in the way. Either way, I'm in the way. Just ask Janie Sue. I'm in the way. Okay, and I'm making sure and rotating the entire bag as I go, backside, front side, all of it. Okay. We're just getting her stitched up, slow but sure. Like I said, those corners are the difficult part, and just let the machine feed it, and everything will be okay. There we go. Past the first one. Okay, and once again, I'm sewing it about 1/8 of an inch from the edge of my skive, so about a 1/2 inch seam allowance is what I'm doing here. I like this leather so much, I might have to make a matching dop kit or something for this bag. Then Janie's definitely going to steal it. All right, so as we go around the top curve, it's not difficult. You just got to keep remembering to rotate the bag. And the end of it that's under the sewing machine is going to rotate on its own, but you got to reach back and grab that other end once in a while and motivate it to turn as well to keep it all even. I'm going slow, and I'm not, it may look like I'm struggling. I'm not, it's nothing to struggle with. I just want to go nice and slow and make sure everything goes together well. Make sure all my edges are lining up nicely and all that. Just being careful, I guess. Almost there. And then a lot of the time, if I, like in these corners that are more difficult, if it's not lining up very well, or it's not stitching together like I need it to, I'll probably leave that original stitch in there to hold everything together for me, and then I'll just re-stitch just to the inside of that, if that makes any sense. Probably doesn't. Almost there. All right, past that last corner. So the rest of it should be cake. Good cake too, not that sugar-free stuff. There we go. I just overstitched those first couple of stitches again, and yeah. There she be. That'll be exciting. I'd turn it right side out to show you, but I don't want to turn it inside out again. So we'll just keep going with the other end. Again, I'm going to clip the other end on, and then I'm going to sew it on in the exact same manner. Not going to do anything different. Not going to change anything. There's nothing special to it. But you want to unzip it a little bit before you start doing that. Where'd we go? You want to make sure you unzip it just a little bit before you start doing that, because it's not always easy to unzip it from the inside when the bag is already sewn together. So when I come back, both the end caps will be sewn on, and we'll do what I call the moment of truth, which is where we turn it right side out. All right, guys, so now we get to the moment of truth. We got two ends sewn onto our bag. Okay, and the first thing I always do, this one's pretty straightforward, so it's very easy to see if you messed up or not. But the first thing I always do is I open the bag up, I look inside, and I make sure that I can't see any daylight inside of my bag. If I can, there's a problem, and I need to go back and fix that seam before I turn the bag right side out. Okay, so now we get to turn the bag right side out because there's no daylight. So there's no real rhyme or reason to it. A lot of the time it just depends on what kind of leather you're using. If you want to start with corners or straight areas or whatever. The biggest thing I will say is I try really hard not to stress the ends of my zippers. Okay, I mean, I did my zippers well and all that, but why risk it? Then the other thing is I try to flop my zippers over so that they don't scratch up the leather as it's turning right side out. Okay, and this leather's going to have a lot of pull up to it, so it's going to dang near change colors by the time I get this procedure done here. I feel bad. Whoever works at a bag factory and just sits there and turns bags right side out all day. I bet they are tough. All right. So far, I like what I'm seeing. You got to get in here to the corners, those tight little radius corners, press them out. Get them nice and squared for you. There we go. All right, and then I take and I just fold these edges back and work my way all the way around the bag. Basically training that seam, I guess you could say, to fold how it needs to. And then we go over here to the other end and do the same thing. Okay. And the same thing, I'm going to go all the way around this side, folding those seams in real nice and tight so that they'll lay nicely. Very important here at the very top of the bag where the zipper comes to the end. Whew. There it is. Now, with the piping, it's rigid enough that it's just going to sit here like this. And depending on what leather you made it out of, again, the might not need the piping to do that, to be rigid. But I know for a fact that this particular leather would have just collapsed in, and that's fine. For pictures, I always recommend people fill them with packing peanuts or wadded up paper or something, or even towels, you know, to give it a nice rigid shape. All right. Now, we've only got one thing left to do, and that is to rivet our handles onto these, okay? Super duper easy. Basically, I'm going to take my handle piece, fold it over that D-ring, kind of get my measurement right where I want it, and I'm going to punch a hole right through that fold. Let me get my hole punching gear back up here. Okay, now I'm going to use that as my pattern to punch the holes in the other end of this strap, plus both ends of the other strap. Okay, and then I'm just going to rivet it on there, same way we riveted these. Okay, and put my rivet in there front to back, and then I'll put the washer on it, I'll cut it off, I'll peen it over, and then I'll dome it, and make sure when you do your bag handles, they stay on one side of the bag. I've had many people in classes not paying attention to what they were doing, and they riveted the handle across the bag to the other side, okay? It does not make your bag to where it's very usable if you can't open it up. All right, so we're gonna rivet it here, and then the same one is gonna rivet on its same side over here, okay? And when that's done, your bag is done. So congratulations. I hope you are very happy with your project. Hope you learned something. And until next time, I'm Aaron Heiser of Maker's Leather Supply, and I hope you have a great day.